Welcome to another episode of the Jersey podcast. I'm your host, Darian Kelly. Today, I have another special guest, Destin George Bell, who is the founder of Cardio. Destin, what's going on, man? How's everything been for the past months, man? Tell me, give me the rundown.
Yeah, better than I deserve, Darian. I've been in Houston for the last 3 months. I live in Austin from Kentucky,
Okay.
and I got connected to this program through contact Preston James, who is the president program. He just runs all the stuff for Div Inc. And I've been trying to get into one of his programs for the longest time for some company, and the pieces aligned, everything came together, and we were at a place where we were applicable, and we got the nod. And so here I am. We got demo day tomorrow, and I'm super excited to show a large group of people how we're going to change the game in cardio for millions of people.
There you go. And tell me, tell just the listeners and viewers, just talk about, first off, like the story behind cardio. Like how did it even get to this point? Like what's the story behind the platform?
For sure, for sure. So my story started around quarantine time. I was stuck at the crib, couldn't go nowhere, couldn't go hoop, couldn't go run with my friends, couldn't do hiking, couldn't do anything that I would usually do to make it a social activity. It was just me, myself, in the neighborhood streets. And I really don't like running. And so I was always putting it off, procrastinating, finding any excuse not to. Like, oh yeah, I got to watch this paint dry. I can't run today.
Right.
It's already 6 o'clock. By the time I go out there, it'll be 6:30. Then it'll be 7:30 when I get back. I got to shower. I got to do this and that. It's like, this is not going to fit in my time schedule. And I was finding any reason not to. And it's mainly because I didn't enjoy the process. I know it's important, but the process of doing cardio just for cardio's sake is boring to me. And I thought about how, mind you, I was just playing basketball a couple of hours ago. We played for 2 hours, and I ran myself to downright exhaustion. And I was thinking, well, that's fine with me. But if I had run the equivalent
Right.
on a normal route outside, I would never have been able to motivate myself. And I was wondering, how could I take the motivation and the enjoyment I get from playing basketball and bring that one-to-one to cardio? And throughout a 7-month period, pretty much between about October 2020 to March 2021, I was fleshing out the idea, figuring out what it would look like. And eventually it turned into a giant game of team turf war, where the areas that you run, walk, or bike through, you can claim on the map, and people can steal from you, and you can steal from other people by moving through their turf, as a way to make it a fun, social, casual activity where a dog walker and an ultra marathoner can be in the same competition and be rewarded for whatever type of outdoor movement they like to do. And over the last year and change, I've been working on it and getting it off the ground. And I'm very happy to say that we're making some meaningful progress. And more, I'm starting to feel like this is going to be something that's going to be major.
Yeah, absolutely. And just going back to what you were saying, like I can relate to that going back to that quarantine time. Like I remember starting off doing the push-ups, me and my roommate, because I was in, doing the same job I'm doing now, more so on the recruiting side. So I had a bunch of calls, he had, was doing some, work on the finance side. So we would challenge each other like, every hour, 30 push-ups, 50 push-ups. But after a while, it's just like, it was just like you were kind of getting tired of, trying to make exercise and leisurely entertaining. So when you talk about the competitive piece, the competition piece, I think that is, that's something that, is needed, especially when you think about, how, now that we're transitioning out of, things are starting to change a bit. But I think that, for the average person, they don't really get outside, especially since most of us are working from home anyhow. We don't really get outside as much, or we don't really get enough exercise, and we're not as motivated. We'll make out, and I've been there. Like I've made every excuse not to go to the gym or not to get outside. So, making it competitive really, plays into that, athletic, that competitive nature that most people, tend to have.
Definitely. That's what we're going for. People like to hoop. People like to go to the gym with their friends. People like to just hang out with their friends. If we can bring that at scale to a platform on your phone, I think we can change the cardio fitness activities and habits of millions of people across the country, and hopefully one day across the world. So that's the vision. And so far it's been going good for us.
Absolutely. And how, for the person that is, looking to, I guess, or take a step back, talk to me about a little bit about your story, prior to cardio, right? Because it wasn't like you just, rolled out of bed and, became, a founder, right? It's a process, it's steps. What was it like prior, what was life like prior to this point?
Yeah, so I mentioned a little bit before, or actually I said right in the beginning that I'm from Kentucky. And so I lived in Kentucky my whole life, born and raised Louisville, Kentucky. Shout out Jack Harlow and Bryson Tiller. Uh, Graduated high school in 2016, moved to the University of Kentucky for an undergrad degree in marketing from 16 to 20. Graduated May 2020. I'm sure everybody's familiar what happened in March 2020.
Right,
So that was obviously not the greatest time in the world to graduate and get into the job market in the business world. Unfortunately, I was one of the many people who did not have any employment or a business or anything like that at the time to fall back on. And so I was kind of in no man's land for a long time. I had done a lot of dumb stuff in the stock market, lost my life savings. I had a business that went under during COVID. I couldn't get a job to save my life. And
right.
one day around October-ish, I was in my dad's not Airbnb, but his house, sleeping in his attic on an air mattress. And I was just so tired of being there. I was working for like $8 an hour, doing some blog writing and other freelance stuff. And I realized I am too young to feel so much resentment for my life. I just have so much opportunity and I have nothing tying me down except for my fear. So if I remove my fear, what would I do with my life? And I realized I don't want to be in Kentucky anymore. I want to go somewhere where young people like myself can work with other young people like myself and find opportunities in tech and all these emerging markets that I want to get into. I found a ton of articles about the best places for young entrepreneurs to move to. Austin continuously popped up on all the lists. And I said, you know what? That's enough for me. I literally got in my car a couple weeks later and just drove to Austin, booked an Airbnb on the way there. And I've been basically thugging it on the entrepreneur game since. I never got a job the whole time. I came there with about $2,000 in my pocket and spent pretty much all of that on the Airbnb to even stay there for that first month, bounce around from Airbnb to my car to a hotel. For the first 2 months, got an apartment. During that time, I was doing a ton of entrepreneurial work. I started a small business around working with remote teams to help them create intranets for their employees who are remote to get to know each other better, basically like fostering and facilitating water cooler talk, as I like to call it, for these remote teams that recently have been disposed because of COVID. I was doing a whole bunch of freelance website development, social media marketing, copywriting, and ghostwriting on LinkedIn posts, whatever it took to start making some money. Started investing in crypto and stocks. And I was just living off of all of these different investments I was making and revenue I was generating from any of these activities and businesses during that time until I started working as a content creator. And I got pretty lucky. I know a man makes his own luck, but at the same time, you have to get a little lucky and the timing has to line up. And around that time, I started making videos around NBA 2K. If you're familiar, I got noticed by some people at the NBA. They love my stuff. They sponsored me to have a content series on their channels and their platforms. And then from there, it kind of just blew up. And I was working with Old Spice and Mobile One. I was getting flown out to cities to do live events and all this type of stuff. But during all of that, I still had this idea of cardio in the back of my head. And I was making this money and doing all these other things I found really interesting. But cardio was the thing that no matter what I was doing, no matter how much money I was making, no matter where I was going in those careers, I kept thinking like, this is the thing that is really going to put me on the map. These other things would be cool. I could make my 6 figures. I could enjoy doing stuff and making YouTube videos about games and other random things is cool. But being able to change the health and cardio activities of millions of people, that just sounds a lot more interesting. And so around December, and there's a lot, and I'm trying to like keep it as succinct as possible because it was a long 2 year process.
Right.
Around May, I got connected to Niantic, which is Pokemon Go's parent company. And
Mm.
I ended up getting connected to the CEO of Niantic, who is a creator of Pokemon Go. And over a long period of time, and I will stress long, very long,
Right.
I finally convinced them to give me a grant for $50,000 to build it. And so since we received that grant, we've been able to grow it to about 1,800 beta users. We've got a co-founder who used to be a senior iOS engineer at LinkedIn, also have been involved with other startups that raised millions of dollars and got to hundreds of thousands of dollars in annual revenues. And we've brought on the advisory board people from Pokemon Go, from Adidas, from Map My Run, from several different companies who have been helping us in our building process. And now I mainly do the cardio fitness app, and on the side, I still do the content stuff. I've got a rental property that I bought in Austin that I'm a landlord and a property owner for. And then I'm also starting a Toro business, and I got vehicles that I put on there and rent out to other people. But my predominant focus is on cardio. And I'm a natural born entrepreneur. I like to say self self-titled, I assume, but I've always just wanted to work for myself and build stuff. And over the last 2 years, I've really been able to live in that truth and find the opportunities for myself in the ways that I want to. And I'm very grateful and lucky to be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit more is when you said, the entrepreneurial life, you chose it, like this was the path that you wanted to go down. Like when did it click for you? Like this is, because I watched a couple of your other interviews, and you said like, man, I always like I hated having a job. Like I could never really have a job. And the people that wanted to hire me, they couldn't hire me because they said I was too entrepreneurial. So like when did it like, when did it really click for you that, okay, this is the life, that I want to live? Like, this is for me. Because for some people it's scary, entrepreneurship is not easy. So when, so for you to make that shift, like when did it happen? And then how did you like know, like, okay, this is what I want to do?
Man, that is a great question. I don't like, I would love to say there was like this moment on September the 15th, 1998 or whatever, but I really don't have a specific day that I can say. I think just over my entire childhood, I realized that I don't like authority. I don't like being told what to do. And I don't like anybody telling me what is possible and what is not possible. And the only way to have all three of those things is to be your own boss. And my earliest time of diving in entrepreneurship was when I had like a yard sale, like 3 years old, outside my mom's house, selling like Spider-Man toys for like $50 and stuff like that. I sold none, by the way, but I've always been selling stuff and making money. Right. My mom tells me, I don't remember this myself, but I was like 5, 6 years old. We went to a McDonald's and there was this one cashier who was hustling. She was taking orders and she was going on the line, making the food. And I was thinking, man, that person's working really hard. My mom was like, nah, that person may be working hard, but they don't make any money. The person making money is that guy in the back who ain't doing nothing. And that apparently, I don't remember this person, but she said that blew my mind. Like I could barely even touch my food the rest of the day because it felt so unfair to me and it felt weird. And I've just dabbled with entrepreneurial stuff my entire life. When I was in middle school, I started selling candy out of my backpack. I would go to Sam's Club. I'd buy like $25 packs of 52 candy bars. I'd flip them for $1 each. I'd reinvest the profits. I'd start wholesaling the candy to other kids and take a rev share of some of the stuff that they sold. I would cut grass. I'd shovel snow. I'd mulch. I'd ghostwrite essays for people's scholarships. I'd ghostwrite some of my friends' rap lyrics. I'd do pretty much anything that I felt like I had value to offer for that people were willing to pay. When I was in college, I started a company doing marketing for groups like Sky Zone, Breakout Games, and other places like that. So it's always been a mix of me doing a ton of entrepreneurial stuff. And I've always found, even when I was making less than I could working for somebody else, that the freedom was worth more than what a W-2 could offer me.
That's powerful. Like when you talk about like the freedom and being your own boss. I guess for you also, like what are the challenges? Like what were some of the challenges, and like how did you build up that mental fortitude to like, to really stick to it? Because I think that when you make the decision to become an entrepreneur, you're gonna have setbacks, you're gonna have things, but it's like, okay, how do you mentally get over those things? Because sometimes people attach themselves emotionally to the outcomes of what happened, and it's hard for them to rebound. So for you, what made you different? Like what was your mindset?
My mindset is that I'm young and I'm dumb and I can mess up as many times as I want to, and I only got to be right once. To me, I only need one company to succeed for me to be good. And I'm also at an age where I'm young enough that the only person I, relatively speaking, have to account for myself is myself. That's it. So when I moved to Austin, I'm a cheap dude. I'm pretty minimalistic. I don't need a lot. Like I can sleep in my car as long as I got Wi-Fi to do some stuff when I go in my hotel room or my small Airbnb or the McDonald's or wherever I go to. I'm good with that. I can eat peanut butter out the jar or peanut butter sandwiches or top ramen or hot dogs or the rotisserie. Well, I lived off of the first like 3 months of living in Austin was like rotisserie chicken at Walmart. They had like $350 rotisserie chicken. I would eat that like every day. That and peanut butter out the jar. I'm a simple guy. And I also feel that the hardships that I would get from entrepreneurship, even if it didn't work out for me, they will prime me to be able to do whatever I want in a corporate setting one day.
Mm,
because corporations want people who are hustlers, ambitious, smart, talented, multifaceted, versatile. And being an entrepreneur provides all that for you.
mm,
I'm a marketer by trade, but I also dabble in sales. I also dabble in UI UX design. Now I've learned a lot about accounting. I've learned about like due diligence for raising capital. I've learned how to manage people. I've learned how to build websites. I've learned how to present and pitch publicly, go to market strategies, brand partnerships. I feel like there's not a lot that you get out of a job outside of the specifics of that. Like I could have been a sales rep and I might have been a good one. I think I'd be a great one, but I'm learning how to sell stuff. I'm not
right.
learning how to build tech. I'm not learning how to build infrastructure. I might be a leader and manage other salespeople, but the level of exposure I get to all the facets of the business is limited. And
Mm,
that means I leave that job. It's going to be difficult for me to go into another thing and build a new career for myself because I've been pigeonholed into being a sales rep for the last 5-7 years. So between the fact that I have like a fear of consequence because I don't have a lot to lose, and that even if it doesn't work out for me, I'm going to come out of it a better person. Those two things were like the easiest part for helping me realize that even if I screw up, I'm going to be good. And the third thing, which the first two are like the first ones we're dealing with fear. But I also think that a big part about being an entrepreneur is that unrealistic optimism that you have to have, where it's like, yeah, you know what, this could go horribly wrong for me. I could end up super broke.
mm,
I could do all this, spend my money, my time, and resources on something that goes nowhere. And it's a waste of time outside of the lessons I get from it. Or it could go really well, and I'll make 10 times what I could have made working a job during this time, and now I'll be able to do whatever I want with my life. I can sell cardio hopefully one day for 100, $250 million. Cash flow out that exit, 50 million. And now, relatively speaking, I can do whatever I want. I
mm.
know there's not a single job. I don't care how many sales meetings I attend and knock down and enterprise clients I add to the pipeline. There's not a job that's going to be able to pay me that much money.
Mm.
So I have a lack of fear of a consequence. I recognize I'm going to learn a lot from it. And then I really, more than anything, think that I'm good at my job. And when I succeed, the financial reward for that investment in something very ambiguous and risky will be worth the time I put into it.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of it is what you're saying is betting on yourself. Like the cliche of bet, double down and really bet on yourself. Like I feel as though like that is something that's like common in what you're saying, and not having that fear, because I don't know what it is. It's like, like people are really consumed by like fear. You know what I mean? They're consumed by like what's the worst that can happen, instead of thinking of like, what's the better outcome. You know what I mean? So
Definitely.
you touched on something really important there, as far as like having that fearlessness. But also with entrepreneurship, right? It's about your habits. I feel like, I don't know, forgot where actually I remember exactly who said this. It was Jordan Palmer, who he works with quarterbacks.
Mhm.
And he said, I forgot who he was speaking to, but I'll never forget the quote. He said that the reason, what makes Tom Brady so great is because it's not that he's the biggest, it's not because he's the strongest, or he's just smarter than everyone. It's about his habits. Like he's able to his habits are a lot better than everyone else. What would you say are like, the top 3 habits that you have to have as an entrepreneur to really succeed and really sustain that, your run, and like what are those habits to stay consistent that you think that are really important?
Habits. That's a good question. I don't think I've had anybody ever ask me that one before. Okay. Habits wise, I would say, man, I'm thinking of like when I'm thinking about habits, I'm thinking about really like mindset things that like on a daily, consistent
Mhm.
basis you need to have. The things that pop into my mind um is, for one, just hustle, like just showing up every day. Like that is the biggest habit you can have, just showing up. I can't tell you how many opportunities I got just by showing up or sending that email or making that phone call or shaking one extra hand. Like going off the Niantic deal that I got. We got a partnership and a 50K investment from them. And we're in the talks right now to get another 500,000, hopefully, if we go through and we're able to find a lead investor. And that all was facilitated from me cold DMing one of their employees on LinkedIn, who responded, connected with me, who then gave me the email of the CEO, who I then cold emailed And then he responded 2 months later. We hopped on a phone call, and then his people basically wrote me off completely and didn't give me the time of day. And I continued to follow up with them over the next 3 months till eventually they said, all right, this kid's relentless. Let's just give him some money and see what he does with it.
Right.
From that, it turned into the opportunity to build this platform and build out all these pieces to it and find my co-founder and invest in content creation and build all these things that were relatively hard for me to do without any money. So showing up, that's the biggest one. Just showing up, taking chances. That's a habit that everybody needs to have in life in general, but especially as an entrepreneur, because nothing's handed in this game. You got to really get it out the mud. There's no structure. You are the structure. So that would be the first one. The second habit, this is one that even I struggle with, but not taking things personally. I think that when you're building a company, you're putting 16 hours a day into it every day for an extended period of time. It's hard to not identify what happens with the business as an attack on you if it doesn't go well. And so when somebody passes on an investment or they don't buy or they don't want to join your team, there was a lot of times where I felt like, man, I'm not good enough. This is something that I'm not capable, or you just feel slighted. You feel like you're incapable of it. You feel like you're not qualified, and you just get down on yourself. I think, in my experience, because I'm 23, I don't have a background in tech. I don't have any experience with running a company of this size. Hopefully, what size it will be, a company of that size. I don't have any experience with raising capital. I don't have any experience with building apps, with UI UX design, with managing people at scale anyway. But at the same time, I know one day I could. And when people say you're not ready, that's not them saying that you suck. That's saying you got more steps to take. And I realized early on when people were saying, no, 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 don't want any part of it. This idea sucks. It's not good. You have a good idea on your hands, but you're not the guy to make it. Because I heard a lot of that stuff early on. There was a part of me that took it very personal, but there was another part that said, you know what? They're actually just saying that because they don't see the vision that I have and they don't know what I'm capable of. So take it personal in that, okay, I need to be better. I need to build this out better. I need to learn these skills. I need to talk to more people. I need to flesh the idea out more, but not as, oh, I'm just not the guy or girl. I can be the guy or girl one day. Don't get caught up in what's now and get caught up too much in what's now and not see what could be. The third thing is kind of an extension of that, but it's always be future focused. Like every time I wake up, I don't get too caught up in what has already happened. Oh my God, we talked to Niantic. They're partnering with us. They gave us a 50K grant. I'm not sleeping on that. Like I'm not sleeping on my laurels because we got a little bit of traction. What's next? Some people don't move the needle forward because they're too busy looking at what they've already accomplished to keep it pushing. Tom Brady is a 7-time Super Bowl champion. He's already definitively the greatest football player of all time, and he's still chasing something because he doesn't see what he's done. He sees what he could do. And if, as an entrepreneur, when you're early stage, it's a little bit easier because you don't have anything yet. But once you do have a company and you've raised money and you've got customers and users and your app is starting to get a lot of press and PR, you're starting to get a lot of followers, you're getting inbound leads, people are spending money with you, you're able to go on those vacations, you're able to buy that nice house, you're able to do all those cool things. You go out to networking events and you go to places and people are like, oh my God, is that Destin, CEO of Cardio? That's so cool that you did this, 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 and this. It's easy to get a little bit content and satisfied with that and think, you know what, I'm cool where I'm at now. I think that's always a bad thing because if you're not growing, then you're declining. Simple as that. So no matter what happens, and I'm early, so it's a lot easier to say that, but no matter what happens in my life, I always remember I could do more. You know, when I moved to Austin and I finally was able to afford an apartment, I said, that's cool, but I could do more. When I started my content business, I got the contract with the NBA. I was like, but I can do more. When I got the 50K from Niantic, I can do more. When I bought my house and started getting tenants who pay my mortgage, I was like, but I can do more. And now I'm here in Houston and we're going to have our demo day tomorrow. And I feel like I'm going to kill it. We're going to raise $2 million in funding. We're going to get partnerships with all these sports teams. And even after all that happens, and I had to go to the after party to enjoy it, of course, I'm going to wake up Friday and say, okay, but I can do more. And I stay hungry. I never let anything that's happened in the past prevent me from focusing on my future.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a bar right there as far as, you know, feelings like you can do more. And And I think that the biggest thing, also too, just kind of going back on those other two, as far as like, not taking things personal. That is something that, a lot of people, not even just entrepreneurs, but just people in general, like they struggle with, it's kind of like in sales where it's like when you get no's, it's not necessarily a no, but it's more so like
Not yet.
not from them, not necessarily from them. You know what I mean? And I think that's I think that is so key, is to not like get emotionally attached to, what a person says or how a person may, critique you. And I think just that hunger to want to do more and to not rest on your laurels, because that's, being in a future state, understanding it's a journey, allows for you to, not get caught up in those, those criticisms, or not to get emotionally attached, because you know where you're going, at the end of the day. So I think I think that you're hitting home on those points. As far as and just going into have you ever felt like imposter syndrome, like whatever times where you're like, man, is this really, am I really who I am? Or you ever like questioned yourself, or ever felt like, had those doubts? And like, how did you handle that? Like when you had those doubts in your head, for you, like how do you deal with imposter syndrome essentially?
It's hard to, because I'm usually a lot younger than the people who I'm working with, talking with, meeting with. I'm unproven. I don't have really any prestige. I don't come from a family that has a background in tech. We didn't grow up wealthy. I'm not from one of these big markets like a San Francisco or New York or any of these tech hubs. And I'm kind of just faking it until I make it in a lot of ways. All the things that I've dabbled in are not things that I had somebody who was really walking me along the process of starting my company. There wasn't anybody I could call, at least at the initial part, before we brought on advisors, that I could say, like, how do I build an app? How do I develop a market? How do I do all these things? I was kind of just YouTubing, reading, and kind of faking it and failing and learning from those failures until I figured it out with the content stuff that I was doing. I got my first contract with the NBA off of a couple of YouTube videos, and I learned how to edit videos during the pandemic off of just YouTube videos and trial and error while I was editing, figuring out what worked and what didn't work. I was recording stuff on like a rinky-dink microphone with my game headset microphone, and a 1080p camera on a 2015 Mac desktop. So a lot of it is just starting somewhere and building. And the imposter syndrome, especially as you start moving through the world and making progress, is almost inevitable. And I feel it. I think everybody who's like me, who doesn't really have the experience or the qualifications to feel like they're an expert in their field, especially when you're younger, feels that. But you also got to recognize that you put the work in, and nobody put you in that room except for you and your hustle. And if you're hustling and you're building something that people want, that doesn't make you an imposter. It makes you an expert, because you're, whatever age you are, whatever experience level you are, making something that people want. And that's that. There's no if, ands, or buts about it. If they didn't want you to be there, if they didn't want to buy from you, if they didn't want to invest in you, if they didn't want to join your team, they would have just said that. So that imposter syndrome is really just an extension of you feeling something that's frankly not true. And I struggle with that, but I have to come back, look in the mirror sometimes and think, you're here for a reason, Destin. There's no reason that anybody would allow you here if you weren't that guy. So move accordingly.
I think that, a lot of people can relate to that. And like you said, like for some people, they struggle with that. Like even with when you like have ideas, and I've even like personally struggled with that, just as far as like how you said, like, you don't, I don't, like you said, you don't come from a big market, like you don't have like a rich uncle that's going to just, invest in your idea at the drop of a hat, so it's like, being able to understand like who you are, understanding the value that you bring, and like you mentioned, like you're here for a reason. And I think oftentimes it's so difficult to, stay present. You can think future state, but you also have to, while you're in your present, remind yourself of who you are and like the work you put in to get to this point, understanding like this is just, a step, this is just, an experience, so to speak, like, and not to get so, caught up in it, but to understand that like, this is, a reflection of who I am. And this is a testament to what I've done to get to this point. So I think that, that point of understanding your value and knowing who you are can transcend the imposter syndrome that a lot of people struggle with.
Definitely. I also feel like when you feel that feeling, you need to introspect and
Mm,
think, why do I feel that? Is it because I didn't know as much as that guy? Well, okay, then learn up. Go talk to him, learn from him, make him a mentor, him or her, learn from them, or read up, do more research on your end, educate yourself. Is it because I'm younger? I mean, there's nothing you can really do about that, but I'd make the argument that age doesn't matter because age,
mm,
experience are not linear, they're not proportionally on the same graph. You can be younger than somebody and know more than them. Like
mm.
the experts in crypto and NFTs are more closer to my age than somebody who's 50 or 60. So
Right.
your experience, your knowledge isn't dictated by your age. It's dictated by how much time you spend in something, how much you've learned about it, and how confident you are in what you know and that you can execute on whatever those ideas are. So a lot of imposter syndrome is really just you not thinking deeply enough about why you feel that and then qualifying those feelings and realizing that they're either something that you can control or something that you can't and you just got to let go of.
Mm. How for you, like how important is surrounding yourself, with like-minded people? Like I remember I believe it was one interview that you had. Like I can't recall what it was, but you were saying that like I believe it was with Diving, you were saying that in the past you weren't around a lot of people who, had the mindset of like, of more or like of surplus. It felt like people was kind of looking at it like, the glass half empty. How important is it like surrounding yourself with, like-minded individuals that are going to help encourage you and challenge you and push you to, get to that next level?
Extremely important. I think a lot of my success is because I moved to Austin. And there's nothing I'm really doing right now that I technically couldn't have done in Kentucky. I mean, I'm not officing out of Austin. I'm talking and connecting with people through LinkedIn and Zoom and social media platforms that work the same in Kentucky as they do in Texas. I'm building an app that will eventually be national. Austin is one of the cities we're launching in, but I will eventually have it in Kentucky. I could have built it in Kentucky. My co-founder and I got connected through LinkedIn. He doesn't even live in Austin. My content creation stuff, none of my clients I met in Austin. Bought my house in Austin, but they got houses everywhere. So I could buy any house. If anything, it would have been cheaper for me to buy a house anywhere else than Austin.
Right.
So what really made Austin somewhere I wanted to move to, and why I'm so committed to staying there is because of the people. I
Mm.
was meeting people my age, older, even younger, who were all killing it in whatever field. And they were all willing to offer advice, guidance, to support, to in general, be there when I needed them. And it was never on some, oh, well, if Destin's winning, that's a win taken off of my plate, which I felt a lot like when I was in Kentucky. There were people who I could go to for advice. They made introductions. They downloaded and tested my app. They gave me their feedback, honest, constructive feedback, instead of just saying things to be mean or saying things to be overly nice. I could take their advice, their guidance, their feedback and know, oh, this is all genuine and it's coming from a good place. And that is extremely important. The biggest thing about Div Inc., I've learned a lot. I've gotten new ideas for my business. They made some great networking opportunities for me. They've opened doors that I couldn't have opened by myself, or at least it would have took a lot longer to do. But the biggest thing is hanging out with all of the people I consider my brothers in the Div Inc. Accelerator program, who I think I can go to any of these founders, talk to them about problems I'm facing. And most of them are older than me, or they've at least been in the game longer than me in my age. And they can say, oh, well, you need to think about this. You need to think about that. You need to change the way you feel about this. You need to move more towards this. Or they can just come to me and say, hey, man, like you're doing a little bit too much right now. They've come to me and say, hey, Destin, you got to focus more. Like you're doing 5 different businesses at the same time. You need to pick 1 or 2 to focus on and really grow on those, and take the other 3 and then take the energy you're putting on those into those main 1 to 2 things. And I really appreciate that. That's something that I've needed. And those circles of people that you can go to for whatever it is that you need, and they'll give you genuine, honest feedback and support you in whatever way that you're asking for, is worth its weight in gold.
Absolutely. And I think that, you touched on like the fact that you can call all of those founders your brothers. And I think it's something that unique happens when everybody is pulling in the right direction. Like even what we were talking about, before we got online when you were talking about how like, they're, everybody's challenging, everybody's talking mess, but at the same time, like it's all out of to see everyone better. And I think when you're in an environment where you're pushed, where you're challenged, And when you can receive that criticism in a way where you understand it's not, it's not destructive, it's actually constructive, it's actually to propel you. You're able
Yeah.
to, you're able to, I guess, learn things about yourself that you didn't know because you're in this environment for it seems like the first time. So it's like, I guess for you also, like, what was like the biggest like lesson you learned by being a part of this, accelerator program? I know it's been a lot of ups and downs and just, coming to Houston and all these different things. Like, what was the biggest takeaway that you've had?
I got a lot of takeaways. I would say the biggest one I've got is that I don't have to do it all alone. Everything's not a competition. If somebody wins, that doesn't make you any less. That means that you're just all in it together and you're all building together. And if somebody hits this milestone first, because I'm ultra competitive and it's never even out of hate
Right.
or anything like jealousy. It's just I'm so competitive. I want to be the first guy in the gym, the last one to leave. I want to raise the most money. I want to have the most users. I want to have the most revenue. I want to have the best team. I want to have the dopest advisors. And you can't win everything.
Mm.
And when I got into the program, I know that other people would speak to it, is that I came into it with the mindset like, I'm going to kill all of y'all respectfully. I want to be the guy that when this is all over, people won't say, oh, Destin is the baddest dude in the city.
Right.
And that ended up being a very toxic mindset that I've had to have, most of my life, because the type of people I was with, it was either be eaten. And this is an environment where it's like, hey, everybody's already got theirs. They've been in the game. They've already made their money. They've already raised their capital. They've already built their products. And they didn't see it like that at all. They said like, hey, Destin is a young, highly educated and motivated young man who's trying to figure out his way. And he's coming into it at the wrong way completely. He's coming out with the wrong energy. And they sat me down and gave me some real older brother like advice. And I appreciate that because it's more than anything what I needed, more than, thinking about the product and the monetization strategy, our marketing strategy, helping me as a founder become a better man and figure out how to operate the right way.
Yeah. And man, I think that's what it's all about at the end of the day. I feel as though like if you don't really learn about yourself, on your journey, if you're not, not around people that's gonna, push you and for you to like reflect and say, man, I came into it this way, but I'm leaving out a better man. Like, I feel like that's more, that's more valuable than I'm not putting that more valuable than the success, but I'm saying as a person, if you're not growing, your growth is always the biggest thing. Because if you're not growing, then you're regressing, you're going a different direction. So I think that is like, I think that's very powerful what you say, that you're a better person because of what you've gone through. But this
I've changed. I've changed as an individual. They even told me like from week 1 to week 12, like you're a completely different guy. A lot of my destinisms are still there. In a lot of ways, I'm the same guy, but I'm a lot more polished version. They really buffed out those edges that were a little sharp. Pillar of success or the anchor that's going to drop you down to failure. And if your founder isn't tight, it doesn't matter how good the idea is. It's all about execution. And the founder is the person who's driving that. And if that person is not ready to handle that responsibility, then a good idea can be, poorly executed and fail. And I believe, and I've got a lot out of this program, like to say just one takeaway is not doing Div Eaton justice, but if I had to pick one, that is the one that will have the most rippling effect on how, not only just for cardio, but how I operate in life from this point on.
Absolutely. And feel free to, I hate to just say one, but like, what are, I guess, two other, I guess, takeaways or just lessons like that you felt like were also important outside of like just with the founders and them challenging you just to be a better person?
On the business side, they opened my mind up to things I hadn't thought about at that point yet. We're a user focused, consumer based app. And so I've been thinking heavily on that. But then they mentioned, oh, well, what about corporate wellness? And I'm like, I've thought about that, but I never really dove into it more. And so I started having conversations with groups like Dell and Chevron and University of Kentucky and other groups. And they said, yeah, this would be really cool. We would pay like $4 a month for each employee that uses it. And I realized, oh, well, I can make more money off of that than I was going to make on the things that I was focusing on.
Right.
And my mind was like, oh, you could be a data company. You're going to be getting location data, health data, psychographical data on what type of teams people are joining. You can figure out like what type of areas they like to stop in, which companies vibe with the different types of demographics. Like if there's an F45 team and all the people who join that team are, 23-year-olds in these cities who run around these areas, or then you got the Houston Rockets or the Astros or the Texans, and they have these demographics. That information is valuable. And I realized, you know what, now cardio came into this diving program as a user-focused app to just gamify cardio, but now it's turned into a user-based app to help people with cardio, with verticals around data and around B2B marketing, B2B product in general, around brands, around internal corporate wellness programs, with school districts are using it as a way to fight childhood obesity, is a data strategy where we can go to like urban development and say, here's the parts of towns that people don't like running in, here's why they don't, or psychographical data and demographical data that we can give to these companies that are interested to learn and the people who are interested in their organization. So it's really broadened the scope of what was really a very simple kiddie app, which at the surface it is, and turn it into something I think could be worth a lot of money one day and provide a lot of value to groups outside of just moms who walk their dog around the neighborhood.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing of, being a part of something that allows you to open your eyes and open your mind up to other possibilities. When you're just looking at it one way, somebody tapping your shoulder and say, hey, you ever looked at it like this, or you ever considered these different things? So I mean, that you can't put a price on that, on that amount of knowledge. Absolutely. So this part of the conversation I like to call wearing a jersey, quick hitter questions. It's my favorite part of the conversation. So jump right in. So favorite pair of shoes all time.
Ooh, Concord 11s.
Favorite jersey of all time.
Kobe home jersey.
Favorite sports memory of all time.
Oh man. Okay, damn. So I'm a big Kobe fan, so I've got a whole bunch of favorite Kobe memories. I gotta pick one though. I will say 60-point game for his last game against the Utah Jazz. I watched every dribble of that game, and I was emotional. Like I actually shed tears at the end of that game. Is how emotional it got me for him playing a sport that, relatively speaking, I'm not that good at and never being. But Kobe has gone on to have such a big impact on my life that him doing that his last game and his speech at the end, Mamba out and all that, like that is something that I think about every day. I even have a poster at my home commemorating the moment that hangs in my room on the wall. So that would probably be my favorite. I got a ton, but I'm gonna go with that one off the top of my head.
Yeah, being is an icon. The title of your memoir.
Man, that's a great question. That's a great question. Can't stop, won't stop.
There you go. If you could have dinner with 3 people, who would they be?
Kobe for sure. Kobe for sure, no question.
Okay.
One of the guys I actually already had dinner with, Junior Bridgman. So he's not as famous as Kobe, but he was also an NBA player. Okay. He was most famous for being part of the trade that sent Kareem from the Bucks to the Lakers in '79. But in addition to that, even though he was an average NBA player, he played 13 seasons, averaged like 12 points a game. He didn't make a lot of money. Probably I think he made less than like $1 million his entire career. But he has actually moved into the 4th highest paid NBA player of all time, just net worth wise, from his investments in Coca-Cola and starting Wendy's and Chili's franchises and just being very smart with his money. He's worth like $700 million. He's the wealthiest athlete you never heard of. And he's not from Louisville, but he played for the University of Louisville. He pretty much lived the life that I wanted to live. He played basketball. He went to the NBA. He got out of the NBA. He started a successful entrepreneurial career, and he's just kicking ass at an old age. Not old. I'm sorry for any old people watching this, but he's like still getting up every day and building stuff. And that's the kind of life that I want to live. And he's very similar to me in a lot of ways from his story that I've read. So him, definitely, even though I already got dinner with him, I want to have it a second time to catch him up on what I've done since the last time we talked. Third person, Elon Musk. when I first moved to Austin, the very first book I read was Elon's biography, actually. And I'm just super inspired by the guy because just reading his story and all the things that he's built and went through the process of doing that, and his continued resiliency and desire to continue to innovate and do things that people said it was impossible. I mean, he had his first company, Zip2, which basically was like a simple thing. It's like Google Maps meets Yelp back in the 90s before that was a thing. Sold it for 22 million, like 4 or 5 years after college, which is where I'm at right now. It's like, man, I want to do that for my company with cardio. Then after that, he started PayPal, which obviously, people still use that. And it was like one of the first online payment services that anybody used in the early 2000s. Then after that, there was Tesla and SpaceX. Don't have to speak on that, but like what he went through, he spent all of his money. He made $200 million on PayPal, and he pretty much spent all of his money to make electric vehicles that people said was impossible to make. And he spent all of it on commercial space travel, which people said was impossible to do. And even when he was at his lowest, his brokest, he never gave up on that vision and mission, and he accomplished it. And that's the kind of attitude that I want to have in my life. I might never fly, rockets to the moon, but in whatever I do, no matter who says it's a dumb idea or it's impossible or I'm going broke in the process of doing it, I want to have the conviction to see it through.
Absolutely.
So those would be my three.
And who is one person that you would love to work with that you haven't worked with already?
Actually, I was thinking about this today, actually. So I'm from Louisville. Okay. And the thing about cardio is that it's a very casual, community-focused game. And we have a lot of influencers who are forming teams to recruit their audiences to join their team and claim turf as part of their brand. And being that I'm from Louisville and that he's super popular right now, I would love to have Jack Harlow as one of my influencers on the app. I think that would be super cool. It'd be even cooler because I actually knew Jack in high school. I went to the studio with him like 2 times. We played basketball together. We were in the same class. Not in like the same exact class. Like we went to the same school and we had English together, but we both graduated from high school in 2016. I knew him in passing. Like I'm not going to be one of these people out here fake claiming him and Jack Harlow best friends or anything like that. But he's super famous. We grew up together in a lot of ways in the same city, in the same general economic class. Well, I think he was a little richer than me, but still like he was a normal dude. He wasn't nothing like he is now. And so being able to build something that the guy who's probably the most famous dude this side, like Muhammad Ali, out of my city would be really cool.
Yeah, we gotta make that happen for sure. My last question is, who is a guest that I should have on the show that you recommend?
That's a great question. I feel like you've already hit all of the Div Inc. people, so you're good there. Who's somebody you haven't talked to? I think you should. I guess before I answer that question, what are the type of people that you want to interview? So that way I know for a fact that I'm answering it correctly.
Yeah, anyone that is in the sports tech space, anyone who's like a former athlete, or professional in the sports space, or former athlete turned entrepreneurs, or entrepreneurs that just have like sports backgrounds, like those type of people. I don't know if that like, I don't know if that's like a clear range, but like anything sports, entrepreneurial, tech related, I'm open to it.
Got you. Okay. Have you already talked to Destin from Div Inc.?
I don't think I have.
Destin would be a good one. He's killing it with Local Sports Network. He's super cool dude. He's been making a lot of moves, and he's one of those older brother type people who had to sit me down and say, hold on, Destin, like, let's get it right. So I got a lot of respect for him. I think low-hanging fruits is already part of Div Inc., but that's a guy who I would definitely try to grab.
Definitely. Well,
now I'm curious. Did anybody recommend you to talk to me?
Yes. So actually, when I was speaking to Eddie Davis, or both of them, when I spoke both of the Eddies, they mentioned you, and I was like, I gotta get around him. I was like, I actually sent him a message. What's funny is that day when we wrapped up interviewing, you hit me back. Like I think that
because I told you, I remember.
Yeah.
They hit me. Yeah. They were on the interview with you, and Eddie was like, Eddie the fourth, the younger one, was like, yo, did Darian hit you up? And I was like, maybe. I don't remember seeing it. I've been busy. Some of the messages get lost in funnel of all the messages that get drained down in my inbox. And so I was like, let me look for it. And I found it. I was like, oh dang, now I feel bad. So I hate not following up with people.
Yeah.
So it was meant to be. It's meant to be.
Absolutely. Yep. You was that was like the next day. I was like, wow, that's so crazy. They mentioned you and now we're here. But other than that, man, Destin, man, thank you so much for your time. I know you're a busy guy. I know that, best of luck to you in demo day. I know you're going to kill it. I won't be there physically because I'm in SF right now, supporting my girlfriend. She's doing she's at the Databricks AI Summit. So I'm more so doing the video work, for her and her speaking engagement. So I won't be in Houston to watch, but I know you're going to kill it. And best of luck to you. And it was a great conversation. Let everybody know where they can find your platform, where they can find you, and just, what's the best place to reach you.
Definitely. I'm definitely more on LinkedIn than any other social media platform. So if y'all want to connect with me there, vibe with me, talk a little about cardio or any other businesses that I work on, or just want to talk in general and connect, you can look me up at Destin Bell on LinkedIn. If you want to get a little bit more specific, you can throw in my middle name, George, on there, in the case there's a lot of Destin Bells out there. Every time I go on LinkedIn, there's like 20 people with the same name.
Right.
So Destin George Bell. Or y'all can go ahead and go on to Cardio's website, which is www.cardi.io. You can sign up for the beta waitlist. We would love to have you guys.
All right. Thank you, Destin. It was a pleasure.
Likewise, my brother.
All right.